It started with what sounded like a normal emergency call. On the night of September 17th, just after midnight, a dispatcher in Wyoming received a call from somewhere deep inside Yellowstone National Park. At first, all she could hear was static. Then, a man's voice came through. It was shaking, breathless. He whispered, "Someone is outside our cabin, and they've been walking around it for hours." The dispatcher asked the standard question, "Sir, what's your location?" But before he could answer clearly, something in his voice changed. The man suddenly stopped talking, and then the screaming began. The call lasted only 47 seconds. By the time park rangers arrived at the scene, the cabin was empty, and the forest around it was completely silent. Late summer in Yellowstone is beautiful, but it can also be strangely quiet at night. On that evening, 3 friends had driven deep into the park for a short camping trip. There was Mark Delaney, 32, his younger brother, Alex, and Alex's girlfriend, Emily Carter. They had rented a small backcountry cabin, not far from the forest line, miles away from any of the busy tourist areas. During the day, they hiked the trails and photographed the wildlife. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but later that night, around 11:40 p.m., Emily noticed something strange. Footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps, crunching through the gravel just outside their cabin. At first, they thought it had to be an animal, maybe a deer wandering by or even a bear, but the footsteps didn't stop. They just kept circling the cabin, over and over and over again, for almost an hour. That's when the fear really started to set in. Mark crept toward the window and carefully lifted the corner of the curtain. Moonlight spilled across the clearing outside. The trees stood perfectly still. The air was quiet, but near the edge of the woods, he saw something that made his stomach tighten into a knot. A figure. It was standing perfectly still. It was too tall to be a child, but far too thin to be a bear. It was just standing there, watching the cabin. Mark immediately grabbed his phone and dialed 911. And that's when the dispatcher answered. The call recording, which was later released by investigators, starts with the sound of Mark breathing heavily. The dispatcher asks, 911, "What's your emergency?" And Mark whispers back, "There's someone outside our cabin. They've been circling us." The dispatcher asked if he could see the person clearly. Mark said no, but he could hear the footsteps again. Slow. And this time, they were getting closer. Then, there was a loud knock. 3 heavy, deliberate bangs on the cabin door. The dispatcher had tried to keep Mark calm, telling him, "Sir, stay inside. Rangers are on the way." But then, something changed. Mark suddenly stopped talking. In the background of the call, the dispatcher heard Emily whisper in a terrified voice, "Mark, there's someone at the window." The next few seconds were pure chaos. You can hear a chair scraping violently across the floor, a door creaking open. Then Mark shouted something, but it was completely unintelligible. And then, suddenly, it was loud, terrified, and then the call disconnected. Because of the extremely remote location, it took park rangers nearly 35 minutes to reach the cabin. When they finally arrived, they were expecting to find injured campers, or maybe evidence of a struggle. Instead, they found something much, much stranger. The cabin door was wide open. The lights were still on. 3 backpacks sat neatly near the table. Their phones, food, and all of their supplies were completely untouched. But the cabin was empty. No Mark, no Alex, no Emily. There was just silence. The rangers began searching the surrounding forest immediately. At first, they found clear footprints in the dirt near the cabin. But there was something odd about them. There's only 1 set of prints. Not 3. Just 1. And these prints circled the cabin multiple times before heading directly toward the tree line. But once the tracks reached the edge of the forest, they vanished. Completely. There were no broken branches, no signs of a struggle. Nothing. It was as if whoever or whatever had been there had simply disappeared into thin air. 2 days later, search teams expanded the area. Nearly 2 miles away from the cabin, they found Mark's backpack lying near a small stream. Inside were his camera and his phone. The phone's battery was dead, but investigators were eventually able to recover part of a video recording from the device. The clip was only 6 seconds long. It showed the dark forest just outside the cabin. The camera was shaking violently. Then, just before the video ended, a tall, dark shadow moved between the trees, and a voice whispered one terrifying sentence: "Don't look at it." Then the video cut to black. Despite weeks of searching across thousands of acres of dense wilderness, none of the 3 campers were ever found. No bodies, no clear evidence, no explanation for what happened to them. The official report simply labeled the case as unsolved missing persons. But park rangers who reviewed the 911 call say something about it still bothers them to this day. In the final seconds of that recording, just before the screaming starts, there is another faint sound in the background. A voice. It wasn't Mark's. It wasn't Emily's. And it wasn't Alex. It was a low, chilling whisper that repeated the same 2 words, twice, slowly, almost calmly. It said, "Come outside." Yellowstone National Park covers more than 2.2 million acres of raw wilderness. Most visitors only ever see the beautiful parts: the geysers, the mountains, the incredible wildlife. But beyond the roads and the well-worn trails, there are endless forests where very few people ever go. These are places where strange things can happen. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as chilling as I did, make sure to subscribe for more mysteries from the deep woods. Stay safe out there